What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're talking about sex, we're talking about thickness, not fatness, we're talking about baby daddies, and we're talking about food. So stick around. Alright guys, alright. All jokes aside, basically what we're going to be talking about is calcium sex. We're going to be talking about weight of your female and kind of how to get her a little bit thicker without being overweight while she's breeding, because that can be unhealthy too. We're also going to talk about baby daddies and how to prep for males being in a female tank or with a female during breeding and how to get her ready for breeding. We're also going to talk about food and the diet that you should be giving your female during breeding or before breeding to prep her for breeding and while she is breeding. So with that being said, now we're gonna get into it. Alright guys, so I'm up in the animal room and I'm here with Rapunzel right here. And I'm gonna use her as an example because Sif, which is the one that I'm gonna be prepping most of the tank and breeding things for, is due to lay in a week, so I wanna mess with her the least amount of times as possible. And since Rapunzel is my oldest gecko at 14, she is not gonna be breeding, so she is okay to kind of use as an example to show you guys some things. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is before you breed, you want to make sure that your gecko is nice and thick. Now I'm going to grab Rapunzel and show you guys. So before, ooh, look at that blushing on her neck. In case you guys didn't know, that's called blushing, that red color underneath her neck. That's called blushing. But so basically, before breeding, what you want to do is thicken your gecko out. So see how she's kind of thicker than normal, just like a normal healthy weight. She's a little bit thicker. She actually needs to go on a diet. For breeding purposes, you want them to be a little bit thicker than their normal weight. I would shoot for 5 or so grams-ish because, I mean, during breeding, it can be very, very rough for the gecko to go through breeding. I mean, they're going to lose some weight. They're going to need extra nutrients and things like that for making the babies and making the eggs. And so you want to make sure that they are a healthy weight. They're a little bit overweight. You don't want them to be obese. Now, there's a difference between having a few more grams on them and being obese. Obesity is not healthy, so you want to make sure that they're not obese, but you do want them to have a little bit of weight because, like I said, breeding can be rough, and you just want them to stay healthy through the whole breeding process. Okay, guys, so the next step is you're going to have to check your crested gecko's calcium sex. So what I do is I put them in my hand, and then as you can see, she started opening her mouth. Sometimes you have to just rub on their mouth a little bit. I'm holding firmly, but I'm not squeezing. As you can see, it's kind of hard to do with one hand. But you hold firmly, but don't squeeze. And as you can see, her calcium sacs are huge. Ouch. As you guys can see, those two big white sacs in the back of her throat are huge. So she's got the calcium ready. So her calcium sacs are built up, and those two big sacs right there are what they use to produce eggs. So they use that calcium to make their eggs, and if they don't have enough calcium on those calcium sacs, they're going to not be able to make healthy enough eggs. So basically not thick enough, and that's really what you want. So you want them to have nice big calcium sacs. Alright guys, so the next thing you're going to do is clean out the female's tank. Now, I'm going to show you guys kind of how I do that. I basically just take everything apart, wash the whole inside of the tub, wash the plants, and we're going to leave the bottom paper towel because it's not very dirty. I know there's a little bit of food right there, but overall it's not very dirty. But I'll show you guys that in 1 second. Alright guys, I'm going to say sorry now for the noise. I've got an air conditioner near me because upstairs is kind of warmer, so just so you know, if there's a little bit of noise, that's why. I'm going to try to speak a little bit louder so you guys can hear me a little bit better, but just so you know, sorry about that, but let's get into it. So basically, what you're gonna have to do is clean out the female's tank. So you're basically gonna take all of her plants and you're gonna end up wanting to wash them and clean them. And then once you get all the plants out, you can go through and deep clean the tank. You're also gonna want to clean her lay box, because see there's some food on that right there on the outside, you guys can see. And the moss might need to be replaced, we'll see in a minute. But yeah, so basically you're gonna want to clean everything that is gonna do with your female tank, because you want it nice and clean, because there's gonna be 2 different geckos in here, the male and then this is the female tank. So yeah, you basically want to get it as clean as you possibly can. All right, so as you guys can see, it's a little bit dirtier than I thought it was. There's a few poop spots in the back, so we're actually going to take out the second paper towel, so the one with all the poop on it. The one up front only has a little piece of food, and I want to keep that in there so when we put the male's paper towels in here, she's not too freaked out that it's just overwhelming male scent. But I'll show you guys that further in 1 minute. But let's get this out and we'll start cleaning this tub. By the way, guys, this is Sif's tank who we're working on today. So Sif and Odie are one of my Dalmatian pairs that I have, and they're going to be giving me a ton of babies this year. Sif pretty much took a year off, and then last year she only laid, I think I only had her breed 4 or 5 clutches, and then so this year she's going to be prepped for doing a full season because she's had a little bit of time off. But let me grab her and I'll show you guys. So see what I was saying, a little bit thicker than normal, which is good because she is in breeding season and she's probably going to lose some of that weight. Nice and cute. Like I said, she's due to lay soon, so I don't want to mess with her too much. But she's going to go inside of here just while we clean her tank. That way she doesn't get too stressed. And I'll go put her in the dark. That way she's not too stressed. Alright guys, now that she's out of here, we can finally start cleaning this tank. And then we are going to put her back in, and I'll show you guys kind of how I set it back up to prep her for the breeding. Basically, it's putting some of the male scent in there so she can get used to smelling a male and start getting ready for breeding season instead of just putting the male in right away. She might not be as receptive to him. So what I do is, well, I'll show you guys in a minute, but we're going to clean the tank first, and then I'll show you guys what I do. Alright guys, as you can see, nice and clean. So now we're ready to start putting our stuff back in after we wash our stuff that we took out of the tank. So the PVC branches, all of the plants, and the lay box and things like that. So stick around. Alright guys, so as you can see, I got some of the PVC in. I have a new piece of paper towel in the back there, and then I left her one cleaner one right in the front. That way it still smells like her. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I am going to be having now this piece, which has a little bit of pee from the male, as you guys can see, and then some food, because I want to put this in her tank so she can start to get some smells from him. That way she can start internally prepping for breeding and, like, I guess mentally prepping for breeding, smelling a male, knowing that there's the possibility of breeding. So that's what I like to do. Sometimes I'll even put the male's lay box in here, or some plants from the male, which I will show you guys in a second. I'm going to end up putting one of the male's plants in for extra plants, and it'll smell like him, so that's kind of a 2-in-1. So yeah, so now that we got this all set up, I'm going to put in the rest of the plants, the lay box back in because I cleaned that too, and yeah, and then we're pretty much done. So I'll wrap it up and show you guys in a minute. Another thing I forgot to mention is you're going to want to leave the things that smell like the male in the tank for about, I would say, 5 days to a week. So you're going to be wanting her to get really nice and prepped up for that male coming into her tank. So what I typically do is anywhere from 3 to 7 days. I would say 5 to 7 is the sweet spot. Usually she's relatively open to the male by the time that you know, he goes in there. Boom. So there we go, guys. Basically that's what I do. Got it all planted out, lots of different spots. Like this corner spot's one, up here under this plant is another spot. That's a hiding spot on the different vines in there. I'm actually going to add some cut up paper towel rolls, that way that the male and female have even more hides to go in. And the reason I use this instead of other things is because I go through a lot of these because I'm cleaning their tanks very, very often. So it's basically easier for me and cheaper for me to do it like this, and it gives them a lot of different hides that I can make custom or do whatever I need to. So it works out pretty well for me. So then I just place these in there along the bottom in different spots. Like I'll put one right there, I'll put one in the middle, and I'll put one over here. Another thing to note is once I do actually add the male in about 3 to 5 days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put his water dish on the other side in this corner. So I've got one, I'm gonna have one over here, and I've got hers right there. So basically what that does is if the female doesn't want to be around the male, because I mean during breeding season the males only have one thing on their mind, and that's making babies. So If the female doesn't want to go by the male, she's got different options. Same thing with food. I put the food on two opposite ends of the tank because I want them to each be able to find food. If they don't want to be around each other, they can be in separate spots. So basically that's how I do that. All right guys, now that we're done, we're gonna put Sif back into her tank. But while I do that, I'm gonna talk to you guys about once that week is up and you've had the male sent in here for about a week, you're gonna put the male into the female's tank. You're not going to put the female into the male's tank. Like I said, during breeding season, the males are very aggressive and they only have one thing on their mind, and that's making babies. So basically, they can be too aggressive if you put the female into the male's tank. So you really want to avoid that. You only want to put the female or the male into the female's tank. That way she's more comfortable and the male won't be too aggressive. Now if you put the female into the male's tank, he's going to be way too aggressive, he's way too comfortable, and he could hurt her. So that's generally why you do that. So you might be asking, what do you do after your male and female have been together and she laid a batch of fertile eggs? That's when I separate them. So I'll take the male out for about a week or so. In order to keep the female healthy while the male is out of the tank, I'm going to give vitamins, a little bit more than normal, and calcium to the female to help replace what she has lost due to breeding. You can also start feeding the female a little bit more often. Instead of every other day, I tend to do about 4 to 5 days a week. Breeding can be hard on the female's bodies, and she needs the extra vitamins and calcium to stay healthy. Another thing to note is that don't hold your female much during breeding. Stress can lead to impaction, and you don't want your female getting impacted. If you have to hold her, it should only be for cleaning purposes or weighing purposes after she just recently laid. Do not hold her when she's about to lay. That can be very, very bad, and that can cause impaction. Now she's due to lay in a week, and this is generally when I really don't want to touch her, but I really needed to clean her tank, so I wanted to do that very quickly. I'm not really messing with her, so I think she should be okay. And this is a little sticky note that I keep on their tank saying their name, their sex, the year, and then the date that they laid, the number of eggs they laid, and then the number of good eggs that were hatched. Now, as you guys can see, 213 and 321, that's about a month and a week apart. Generally, that's when Sif lays, is every month and a week. Now, some crested geckos will lay every 45 days, some will lay every 30 days. So it's important to keep track of how many she's laying, when she's laying them, how many are good, and things like that. Now, I do that for every single female. Now, Chips is not breeding yet. She's not of weight yet or anything like that. So, obviously, hers is empty. But I do that for every single female. That way, I know how often they're laying. Even if I'm not breeding them at that time, I still want to know how often they're laying eggs, when they're laying them. Obviously, none of them will be good if they're not with a male. But yeah, that's kind of how I do that. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously there are some risks with breeding, so always keep that in the back of your mind, because obviously there can be complications, you know. You might have to take your gecko to the vet. Think about your risks before you breed. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace out.